So, welcome everybody. Welcome, how are you doing today? It's very nice to have you here, and I have today Amy and Jenny here with me. Hello. Hi, say hi. Hi Jenny, hi Amy. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks, Neelam. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you. It's always so nice to see to see you guys in person. It's see you on the screen at least. It's really nice.
Definitely.
So we want to spend, we want to spend a little time just talking about, really talking about the longer programs, but maybe talking a little bit in general about the teaching also. So, where do you think we should start, Amy? Do you have any suggestions here?
Sure. Let's see. The longer programs, we could talk a little bit about why you teach in longer programs and why that's important to you. Maybe we could start there.
Yeah, or maybe I start a little bit with, just why I teach altogether, how that comes about, and that leads into how I came to teach the longer program, because the sitting for satsang, it all started with me being with Papaji and that awakening experience that I had in his presence, and then eventually coming back from India, I started to sit with some friends, and then that eventually turned into a more, an understanding within me that is turning into a more formal satsang gathering, and that's when I sent a letter to Papaji telling him about it and asking him if it was okay to do that. And long story short, he said, yes, okay, you can conduct satsang. And since then, I have been sitting with students in satsang, and in the beginning, it was just really maybe the first couple of years where just really the overflow of that recognition. So whatever happened when I was sitting with, in Papaji's presence, and that direct recognition of my true nature, and the direct recognition that I'm not this body, and that everything is the same. And that overflow of that recognition, in the beginning, I was just wanting to tell this to everyone, really. It was difficult to stop. And so sitting in satsang, it was just the overflow of that. It was really sharing of that experience, and it was natural. And back then, I didn't even speak much. I would just sit most of the time, or we'll just have a little bit of a conversation, some questions and answers. And then, after a couple of years, I realized that, that was just beautiful, natural and beautiful and very spontaneous. And people will recognize and get it, but after a couple of years, but they will also unget it, right? Some of them will get it, and some of them will get it for a moment, and then they will unget it. And they will come back and they will say, they can't find it, So eventually I realized that something more was needed, that just sharing that direct experience of presence was not enough by itself, that they needed to be a little more. And that's when I decided to, that's when I started to develop these inquiry processes. That's when I started to sit with smaller groups of people. That's where I started the ongoing programs, because I felt, there was more learning needed on how to be here with what is. That on the one hand, we have this recognition of presence, and on the other hand, we have our ability to be here with what is, and both are really essential and important. And And I felt that, just the occasional sitting in satsang with a student is not enough. I mean, it's beautiful, it's amazing, it's powerful. We get together, we sit, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, but then it's over in that sense that there's no continuation. And when I sit with students in the program, we really have the time to learn inquiry. We really have the time to address the tendencies that are here. We really have the time to more deeply come to rest, and most of all to come to some sense of capacity within on how to be with what is, right? So that's, there's many other reasons, but that's why I started to teach in longer. It's one of the reasons why I started to teach in longer programs. What else do you think, Jenny? What do you think what else would you guys want me to talk about or speak about?
Well, what happens when students sit with you in a 6-month program?
Well, that's a good question, because what happens when students sit with me in general, right? I mean, what is it that brings a student to come to satsang? Right? I would say that that's, the desire for truth, right? The desire for freedom. That's what brings us here. So this desire for freedom is a very, very unique one, because it's the only desire that is not seeking for something out there. It's actually seeking to recognize its own true nature, right? However, oftentimes we need this. If we can't trust enough our own recognition of presence here, we need this, manifestation of it on the outside, so to speak, on the out there, right? That's what the form of teacher is, right? It's a manifestation of our true nature out there, right? Somebody that can tell us, hey, this is where it is. This is what you're looking for is here. Right? So when students come to sit with me in general, they are brought by the desire for freedom, and what they are looking is for that reflection. They are looking for that pointing. They are looking for somebody to tell them, here it is, and also for somebody to show them how to be here, right? So when we come into the 6-month program, which is really the longest program I do right now, when we come into the 6-month program, then we really have the time. We first of all have the time to sit together over an extended period of time, which, sitting together has a lot of benefits in it. Sitting with a teacher really strengthens our commitment to our inner, right? When we decide to come to a program, we are making a decision for the inner. We are saying, okay, I'm going to be here, right? I'm going to actually be here and be present to what arises here. So when we sit together, for 6 months, we have time to establish that direct experience of presence, or the recognition of presence. We have time to come into a deeper trust within ourselves. And that also includes the trust with the teacher, because even though we can say, almost like when I saw Papaji for the first time and anybody would ask me, do you trust him? I would say, sure. But it wasn't so, right? It wasn't fully so. And so that deeper inner trust, that takes some time too. Also, when we sit together, we have the opportunity to learn some skills, like inquiry, like how do we really do that, right? What does it mean to be here with something? How can we grow the capacity in the nervous system to really be present to what arises? That's what happens in a 6-month program also. And of course, I speak about a lot of aspects of the teaching, and so there's time to learn that. There's time to experience that. There's time to ask questions about it. And ultimately, there's time to in the safety of the group and in the safety of the process and in that kind of commitment that we make, there's time to address some of the deeper tendencies that are here and the tendencies that stop us from resting here. The tendencies that when they arise, they take our attention. And, being in life, we can so easily get distracted by many different things that are going on, right? It's easy to lose our focus. Being in the program, we have this continuous contact and continuous reminder and continuous commitment to just really stay focused with what is here. What do you guys think? I mean, what do you say? How is it, Amy or Jenny? How is it to be in the program? What you having been in the program? How do you experience that?
Well, for me, it's definitely been helpful, and that's why I keep signing up again. So I'll be starting my third long program, and the teaching has helped me to see that the only true choice is to abide in what I call here-ness. And Neelam, you're showing me over and over that coming back to here and now without engaging in the story is my only choice, and it's all that I truly want as well. And you've been teaching me kindness and patience with my past conditioning that arises in my body-mind, and showing me how not to engage in the conditioned story while coming home to here-ness through the sensations of the body. And I'm learning to recognize the strategies my mind uses to avoid what's here, and learning to come back here even in the midst of pain or discomfort. And I'm learning how to be here with whatever arises. And I'm deeply grateful for your teaching and your presence, Neelam.
Sure. So it sounds like you enjoy the programs if you're coming again, right? You think?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I enjoy the programs, and they've been very helpful.
Good, yes.
It's slow, it's not a fast thing, but because I've had extra decades over some people to, in doing the old habits. So
Right. But
yeah.
yeah, it's the sitting together is really, I mean, when you say it's helpful, that's why we are doing it, right? It's long because it's helpful. Right? What do you say, Amy? What do you say about being in the program? How does, what is that for you?
Well, for me, it's the continual sitting together, really honoring the body and the nervous system, and resting in presence, and being able to interact with your insight and wisdom has been just continually helpful for me. And actually, for me, it's just very practical in my everyday life to apply what you're sharing, and like it helps me with relationships and parenting and being more clear myself about who I am in my own life and the world. So it's like the depth of support that's provided through the program, I just really haven't experienced in any other setting before. And the simplicity and the directness of inquiry is a gift too. That's a big piece of obviously what you're sharing, and the way to meet the moment, meet the reactivity or conditioning, and that, so that we can actually have that distinction between, am I just getting wrapped up, in old conditioning and patterning and unhealthy behaviors, or am I going to make the choice to be here, to notice what's really here, and then move forward with that awareness instead. So, yeah, I just feel like it's just been really helpful to interact with you and to be able to be in your programs. And, you've shared some things with me through the programs that have been hard for me to hear sometimes, but they were really I really needed to hear them. And you're so gentle and kind about the way that you are, and yet direct at the same time, that it's hard to put words on how grateful I am for, interacting with you and meeting with you and being able to participate, and that you offer the programs like you do, so that it is this long term, because anybody who's ever tried to change something about themselves knows that change takes time, and this change is from within. It's like a natural movement of transformation that happens when we really recognize what we are on the inside, and kind of let the conditioning and let the reactivity have some space so that it can transform. And instead of like trying to do it from the outside, it's from the inside. And over time, there's just a stronger reliance on that inner presence potential choice, and that's huge for me in my life.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. Yes, and that support, that you are speaking about also is such a big part of the program, and the change, because it takes time for change, right? It takes time for transformation, and also even scientifically, the brain and the nervous system, it needs about 6 months to change, to learn something new, right? To change a habit, and inquiry is really a change of habit, right? In so many ways, a change of habit of rather than getting involved, and rather than getting caught up in it, to just come back and be present. And what also comes to me yet, to say a little bit more about the teaching in general, that really we have these two elements. One is the recognition of presence and the direct experience of presence. And that is what leads to awakening. And that that recognition of presence may be instantaneous. However, it takes time, once we recognize presence, and it takes time before, a time of going between recognition of presence and the contraction into the individual sense of identity. It takes time until we really come into this full trust, because in this moment, that moment of trust is what I call awakening, right? And some of you already come having awakened to the truth of our true nature, and yet we all realize that this is not the end by any means, right? That there is still work to be done, and that work is what I really call freedom. That when we realize that inquiry is necessary before, during, and after awakening, right? That awakening doesn't necessarily mean the end of tendencies. That it means realizing that the ground of our experience is really emptiness or presence. The ground of all experience is presence. However, that doesn't mean that it's the end of conditioning, and then to really keep coming to that, can I be here with what is? And that's what brings us to freedom, because what I call freedom is the true independence from the past. And that means in the moment when past arises, is there a willingness to just really be here, to be present to what is? And then let the willingness to allow that to be here, and then to not to act on that. And then eventually to see what really arises, what is the action that comes from rest, and to act on that. And so these two elements, recognition of presence, and then learning how to be with what arises, and not just learning how to be, but also bring awareness to the tendencies of the past, to recognize that the tendencies are present. Awareness is a beginning, right? It's a beginning. And then once we are aware, we can become more and more present to that experience as it arises here. And more in it, we can recognize that in it, everything is empty, right? Or everything is at rest, or everything is okay. So, So all of that, believe it or not, happens in the longer program, right? It happens in every time we sit, but the longer programs just really give us the time to really focus on that, the time and space to focus on that. So, is there anything else, you guys, you think that we need to say?
I think we really covered it all
Good.
succinctly.
Yes. Yeah. Let's just sit here for another moment together, everybody, and just for a moment of silence together. So thank you again. Very nice to see you here, Jenny, Amy. And very nice to have everybody. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Neelam.
Thank you.